In May 2019, country legend Kenny Rogers was lying in a hospital bed in Georgia. He was 80 years old, and his health had been failing for a long time. His family feared the worst, and fans across the world were worried. Rumors filled the media, with some saying he was already near the end of his journey. What made this time even more emotional was that Kenny had always hoped to sing one last song with his longtime friend, Dolly Parton. Over the years, the two had created unforgettable music together, including their famous hit Islands in the Stream. Their chemistry on stage was magical, but behind the scenes, they shared a brother-sister type of friendship that lasted decades. While the story of a hospital room duet is more myth than fact, what remains true is that Kenny's last years were filled with memories of his career and the people who meant the most to him. When he eventually passed away in 2020, he left not only a legacy of songs but also a story of struggle, sacrifice, and redemption. His life was more than just music. It was a journey filled with hardships, broken relationships, triumphs, and lessons that still inspire fans today. Kenny Rogers' life started far away from fame and fortune. Born on August 21, 1938, in Houston, Texas, he was the fourth of 8 children. His family lived in San Felipe Courts, a government housing project for low-income families. Money was always short, and many nights, dinner was nothing more than peanut butter spread on bread. His father worked hard but never earned more than $75 a week, barely enough to keep food on the table. Kenny learned the value of work early in life. As a teenager, he cleaned floors at a hat store for $9 a week and later carried plates at the Rice Hotel. Every penny mattered, but instead of spending it, Kenny saved $60 to buy his first guitar from Sears. That moment was the beginning of everything. Music gave him hope and a way out of poverty. By age 17, he had already achieved something no one else in his family had. He graduated high school. Later, he remembered the pride he felt that day, calling it one of the most important moments of his early life. While in high school, Kenny and his friends formed a small band and jokingly called themselves the Scholars. The name was ironic, since none of them were top students, but they had rhythm, charm, and a strong desire to succeed. They played at school dances, veterans' halls, and local events, mixing doo-wop sounds with the influence of Elvis Presley. Their energy got attention, and they even recorded a song called Poor Little Doggy, selling about 3,000 copies in Houston. That was enough to land them on a local TV show called Jivetown. Soon after, Kenny recorded his first solo single, That Crazy Feeling, in 1957 when he was just 19. To everyone's surprise, it became a regional hit, selling 30,000 copies in only a couple of months. He was even invited to perform on Dick Clark's famous American Bandstand in 1958. Though the song only reached number 51 on the national charts, Kenny's charisma shone through for the first time. America saw the man who would later become one of country music's greatest icons. The young boy from Houston was no longer just dreaming. He was taking his first real steps into the world of music. In the middle of chasing music, Kenny's personal life began moving quickly. On May 15, 1958, when he was just 19 years old, he married his first wife, Janice Gordon. She was only 18 at the time, and already 3 months pregnant. They married in a small courthouse in Houston with little money. Kenny had to borrow $75 for the marriage license, and wore the only suit he owned before rushing to work at the carpet warehouse. Just a few months later, their daughter Carol Lynn was born. Kenny was young, broke, and already under heavy pressure to provide. His entire net worth at that point was an old car and a pawned trumpet. He juggled small club performances that paid $15 while also trying to be a husband and father. Unfortunately, Janice's parents didn't believe in him. They thought Kenny was ruining their daughter's life, and their criticism made the marriage harder. By late 1959, the relationship had broken down. One night during an argument, Janice and her mother left, taking the baby with them. Kenny was devastated. By April 1960, less than 2 years after the wedding, the marriage officially ended. This early heartbreak became one of the many sacrifices Kenny made in order to chase his dream of music. After his divorce, Kenny continued to pursue music more seriously. He joined the Bobby Doyle Trio, performing in clubs and traveling across the country. While the gigs paid a little more, they also kept him away from his daughter. At first, Kenny agreed to see Carol Lynn once a week for 2 hours, but the demands of constant travel made that impossible. He began missing visits, and eventually, he stepped away completely, believing her new stepfather could provide the stability he could not. Kenny later admitted this decision haunted him for the rest of his life. In his 2012 memoir, he openly confessed, "I chose my career over my first child, and that's a debt I can't repay." By the 1980s, Kenny was one of the biggest stars in the world, selling out arenas, but there was always an emptiness when he thought of the daughter he had lost touch with. He tried to repair the relationship years later, even flying Janice and Carol to Hawaii for a reunion, but it ended in silence and awkward distance. His music brought him fame, fortune, and millions of fans. But the personal cost of that success never left him. Kenny's big break came when he joined the New Christie Minstrels in 1966, a well-known folk group with dozens of members. For the first time, Kenny was on national television and performing to audiences of millions. But the rules of the group were strict, and Kenny wanted more freedom. In 1967, he and a few other members left to form their own band, the First Edition. This is where Kenny began to transform, growing his hair, piercing his ear, and pouring all his savings into music equipment. Within weeks, they were signed to Reprise Records. And their first major hit came in 1968, with the song just dropped in To See What Condition My Condition Was In. The psychedelic rock track shocked many because it was so different from what Kenny would later become known for, but had climbed the charts. Reaching number 5 on the Billboard Hot 100, suddenly, Kenny Rogers was no longer just another singer. He was a rising star. By 1969, the group's success was being marketed mostly under Kenny's name, and it became clear that he was destined to be the leader. By the early 1970s, Kenny Rogers and the First Edition were household names. They even had their own television variety show called Rolling on the River, which aired weekly and featured big guest stars. The show gave Kenny national recognition and proved he could connect with audiences far beyond music. However, as the group's success slowed down, Kenny made the bold decision to go solo. By 1975, the First Edition had broken up, and Kenny was left to reinvent himself. It was a risky movement, thought his career might fade without the band, but Kenny was determined. He poured his heart into country music, a genre that suited his voice and storytelling style perfectly. Then, in 1977, everything changed. His song Lucille became a massive hit, reaching number 1 on the country charts, and even crossing over to the pop charts. The song sold over 5 million copies worldwide, and won him a Grammy Award. For Kenny, it was the beginning of a solo career that would make him one of the most beloved artists in country music history. If Lucille put Kenny Rogers on the map, then The Gambler made him a legend. Released in 1978, the song was simple, yet powerful, telling the story of a card player sharing wisdom about life. The lyrics, "You've got to know when to hold 'em, know when to fold 'em," became part of American culture. The song didn't just top the country charts, it also reached the pop charts, proving that Kenny had a rare ability to cross genres. The Gambler earned him another Grammy, and eventually led to a series of television movies in which Kenny starred as the Gambler himself. These movies stretched into the 1990s, giving him an acting career alongside his music. By the early 1980s, Kenny Rogers was not just a singer, but a worldwide superstar. He was selling out arenas, winning awards, and becoming one of the most recognized voices in the world. Yet, even with all this fame, his personal life continued to be complicated, with more marriages and divorces along the way. Among all the people Kenny worked with, no one left a bigger mark than Dolly Parton. Their first big duet, Islands in the Stream, released in 1983, became a cultural phenomenon. Written by the Bee Gees, the song shot to number 1 on the pop, country, and adult contemporary charts at the same time. Their voices blended beautifully. and their chemistry on stage made fans believe there might be a romance between them. But both Kenny and Dolly insisted their relationship was always platonic. Dolly once joked that Kenny was the only man who made white hair look sexy, while Kenny described her as the sister he never had. Over the next 3 decades, they only officially recorded 5 duets together, including Real Love, Christmas Without You, and finally, You Can't Make Old Friends in 2013. That last song was emotional for both of them, as it reflected on their long friendship and the reality of time passing. When they recorded it, Kenny struggled to get through the lyrics, and everyone in the studio knew it was something special. By the 1990s, Kenny's career had slowed slightly, but he remained one of the biggest names in country music. In 1997, he married Wanda Miller, who was 34 years younger than him. Their love story surprised many, but it turned out to be the most stable relationship of his life. In 2004, at the age of 65, Kenny became a father again when Wanda gave birth to twin boys, Justin and Jordan. Having young children at that stage of life changed him completely. He reduced his touring schedule, spending more time at home. Saturdays became Super Saturdays, where he dedicated the entire day to his boys going to McDonald's, playing games, and making memories. Friends joked that the gambler had traded cards for peekaboo, but for Kenny, it was exactly what he wanted. After decades of sacrificing family for music, he finally had the chance to be a present father. His twins became his greatest joy, and even as his health declined, he made sure to spend as much time with them as possible. In the late 2010s, Kenny Rogers' health began to decline. He suffered from arthritis, back problems, and other complications. From years of touring, in 2018, he shocked fans by canceling the final shows of his farewell tour, saying his body simply couldn't keep up anymore. By 2019, he was hospitalized for dehydration, and rumors spread that he was near the end. His team denied the most dramatic stories, but it was clear that Kenny's time on stage had truly come to a close. In March 2020, the world lost Kenny Rogers. He passed away at the age of 81 in his home in Sandy Springs, Georgia, surrounded by his wife and children. Because of the COVID-19 pandemic, there was no large public funeral, but tributes poured in from all over the world. Landmarks dimmed their lights, and fans played his songs in remembrance. Lionel Richie, one of his closest friends, released the song Goodbye, which Kenny had recorded quietly years earlier. The track felt like a final. Kenny Rogers' story is one of transformation, resilience, and unforgettable music. From a poor boy in Houston eating peanut butter sandwiches to a global superstar selling over 120 million records, his journey was nothing short of remarkable. He won 3 Grammy Awards, was inducted into the Country Music Hall of Fame, and even starred in movies and television. But beyond the fame and fortune, what made Kenny Rogers special was his ability to connect with people. His songs told stories of love, regret, choices, and hope, universal themes that everyone could relate to. He wasn't just singing, he was sharing pieces of life's truth. And while he admitted to making mistakes, especially when it came to balancing family and career, he also showed growth by dedicating his final years to his twins and wife. Kenny Rogers left behind a legacy that will never fade. His music continues to be played, his words still inspire, and his story reminds us that success comes with choices and that even legends are human at heart.